Hey rollers, well we'll try this video again as I drive back home from Provo. I was just in North Provo, very North Provo. And yeah, I hope things went well with that. I met a really good guy. His name is Nir, N-I-R. He's one of the coolest guys I've met in a while. And I met his brother-in-law too, Larry. Apparently they have a niece getting married up here in Salt Lake. But anyway, that being said, I wanted to just give a report on last night's gaming session. Just to let everybody know, yes, we had the offline cafe last night and it went really well. And an interesting thing happened. We ended the short story and suddenly when I presented them with a chance to be able to change and go with a different system, they all said no, we want to stick with this one. So Crystal Heart went by Aaron Aviv, or no, Aaron and Aviv. I'll just say that. But they really write a great comic. You can look at their webcomic, up4players.com. It just gives you some great insight, some great, wonderful stuff. That being said, the game went really well last night. We had 7 people show up again. My daughter was actually out, so it would have been a full 8 had they shown up and my daughter not been gone. So that would have been really cool. But anyway, moving on. In the last version of what I thought was this broadcast, I talked about why do we role play. I think that's really kind of the foundational point to begin with, and we can move forward from there into the game mastering. Because there wouldn't be game mastering if there weren't games to game master. And there wouldn't be games if we didn't want to play these games. So why do we do role-playing games? Why do we play role-playing games? And I think part of it is what I've said in my Game Master Boot Camp, that the stories that we decided to turn into role-playing games were some of the coolest stories that we've ever experienced, that we wanted to be part of it because the world felt so alive that it felt that it was more than just that one little tiny space, that it was this huge space that could be accessed, and initially only in our imaginations. So let's take Lord of the Rings. Sure, we're concentrating on what's happened with Bilbo and Frodo and Samwise and Merry and Pippin and Boromir, who dies at the end of the first book, which actually I have a whole argument as to why, at least as far as character climax goes, when Frodo's seated at the throne on Amon Hen and has the ring on his finger and sees all of Middle Earth that he could conquer and it could be his if he just would serve the Dark Lord, and he's not sure if he's calling out never no never or yea verily I come unto thee, and then from the other side he's getting pressed by this voice from the Misty Mountains of Gandalf's spirit saying, take it off, you fool, take off the ring. It doesn't, and then he decides, and then he gets a moment of silence where he decides for himself what he's going to do. So that, I argue, is the character climax, and that's part of what it all was about. It's about the story, and part of the reason why it's so engaging is because Frodo actually had a moment where he could have failed. And we all see those moments in ourselves where we have decisions we could make, and we could go left, we could go right, we could go straight, and we always partially wonder what we would have done in those situations. And we also, when we look at wanting to play in that world of Middle-earth, where, yes, Frodo did probably the best deed that could ever be done in Middle-earth. He got rid of the Dark Lord by destroying the ring. But, well, actually, truth be told, he failed. He failed. In the last minute, he actually claimed the ring. And it was because of his compassion towards Gollum that he actually succeeded, that the ring was successfully destroyed when he bit it off his finger. And that's another point, is that this brings up again that idea that failure is interesting. Failure is really what makes a story. I mean, Frodo failed. When Han was trying to keep the stormtroopers from coming up stairs to the prison bay and trying to keep them from coming in, he failed that conversation. He ended up shooting the panel. So failure, that's probably one of the first things I would say for any game master, any gamer, anybody looking to make a better story, is that success doesn't always lead to fun. Success doesn't always lead to a good story. So let's kind of talk about that for a second. What are role-playing games? What do they do? They give us a chance to immerse. Well, not immerse. I'll get into immersion another time, but immersion is probably the bad word here. But it gives us a chance to visit the world that we read about, the world that we imagined, the world that we played in. We get a chance to visit that place. I think that's the best way to start it, is that we're visiting a place that we found we liked, that we found we enjoyed. And then when we visit that place, then we can, when we visit that place, we find that we are in a place where we can maybe see if we could have affected the world or how we could have affected that world. And so that's where we kind of blend in the game we used to play as kids of bang bang, I got you. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. And we're playing cops and robbers. We're playing cowboys and Indians. We're playing house. And we're imagining ourselves in that situation, in that scenario. Now, the problem with, again, cops and robbers and knights and more knights. The problem with knights and more knights, and, or knights in shining armor, I guess we could call it, and the problem with cowboys and Indians, the problem with even playing house, is that, first of all, we have to make up the problems, and second, we have to solve them, and usually we succeed at all of them. So what happens is we end up wanting something in our role-playing games when we revisit those worlds where we can now, instead of saying, well, I got the bad guy, no you didn't, we can now let the dice decide for us. And that's what makes a role-playing game. We agree that by rules of games that dice determine our success or failure. So it's a combination of three things. It's a combination of campfire storytelling of, I'm going to tell my part of the story, you tell your part of the story, you tell your part of the story. That's one of the things. It combines in a play, like, with characters that actually are reachable and identifiable. It combines in, I guess it's kind of four things, if you think about it. It combines in that, like I said, that let's pretend, that make-believe. And then it finally combines in the element of rules. Rules that give us a way of determining whether or not our character that we're talking about was successful in their desired accomplishment. Because like I said, sometimes failure is cool. Failure is fun. Because when you fail, when you fail, then you have to come up with other ways to get around that. Now in Savage Worlds, the system that I'm learning that I know best, one of the things key to character creation, key to making characters that feel a little more real, a little more fun, is that idea of, hey, it is to make a character, I should say, with what are called hindrances. Now, hindrances are not actually really failures, but they're constraints. That's a word the fancy word that we use in my industry of project management. We use constraints. And constraints are things that have to be done in order for success to be determined. So, when you look at a constraint, you can say, okay, my character has the mean hindrance. No, they use that all the time on the GM podcast. How about my character has the bloodthirsty hindrance? Does that mean that you are going out there trying to kill every single thing that you see? No. Because of trappings, actually, you could actually make bloodthirsty into something kind of cool. You could make bloodthirsty mean that you give them the chance of harming someone or not harming someone, depending on the situation and who's watching. You very well could just do the harm. So if my character's bloodthirsty, but I decide that my character's going to be bloodthirsty in a social way, my character is always going to be looking for that chink in somebody's emotional armor and grabbing that and poking something in it every chance they get. They're going to sit there and deride people and mock people and just make themselves, and I mean, yeah, it can be argued that's mean, but going for bloodthirsty, making it so they hurt anytime they open their mouth if they didn't say something that pleased you, that's a trapping of bloodthirsty. And there's all sorts of ways that you can do that kind of stuff and things like that. However, I would say that's one of those places where we've agreed on a rule that will determine how the character is and how they grow. So that's where, and that's another why we play the role-playing games. We like to see the character go through their own arc. And is every single one of the characters a perfect character who can do more things than anybody else and is smarter than everybody else and quicker than everybody else and all that? No, those are called Mary Sues, and we don't like Mary Sues, because ever since Lieutenant Mary Sue came out in 1972 to be smarter than Spock and better at engineering than Scotty and better captain and love interest to Captain Kirk and just better at everything than everybody else on the ship. No, she then became a central character in an ensemble cast. The point of an ensemble cast is that you are, as an ensemble cast, you are working to tell the story together. So, and I'll get into this another time as well, but sometimes sometimes really, if you think about it, you know, the ship or the place that you go back to is part of the ensemble. The Enterprise was essentially, I've got a good friend who really did a good job. He really did a good job in explaining why. He did a really good job in explaining how having 2 to the nth power characters in a story makes the story more memorable. So, in a lot of ways, the Enterprise was the 8th crew member, or the 8th ensemble cast member, and that's 2 to the 3rd power, but that's getting aside. But regardless, I will actually do a whole video on bases. But the idea of a base or a place that you keep going back to is actually very important, and it means that, well, like that's why bases in superhero games or G.I. Joe type games. I definitely want to pick up. I guess it's called Freedom Force by Sean Patrick Fannin. He really wrote a good game. It looks like from that. I want to pick it up because I loved G.I. Joe. Like, to the point that when I had to look at all my action figures, my mom was telling me I had too many, and I had to get rid of some action figures. I got rid of my Star Wars action figures. In retrospect, I still kind of wish I would have held on to them because I had a lot of very desirable ones that I actually probably could have made some money off of. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I can't. Oh yeah, I was talking about bases, and all your bases belong to us. But the idea of a base, a place that the characters can go back to. I do like what I think it was Chris Fox. You can check him out over at SavageCast.com, which that one I highly recommend actually for any of you who want to learn more about Savage Worlds and the fun stuff that it offers without having to go through any of the mish that might not be so hot for teenagers and families that is on the GM podcast, the Savage Worlds GM podcast. Because I love those guys. Savage Worlds GM podcast guys, they are some of my most favorite people in the whole world. I do look forward to a future point when I can meet them and hang out with them, maybe do a game with them. That'd be a blast. And Chris Fox from Savage Cast is over there all the time too. He's known as the Savage Mommy. He's actually close to where I'm at, here in the Salt Lake City area, and that's he's over in Denver, Colorado. And they're two kind of bookends to the gaming year. They have our Genghis Khan. Get it? Genghis Khan, C-O-N. And so there's Genghis Khan, and I forgot the other ones. It's toward the end of the year, but I'm sure you can find those ones. If you look up Genghis Khan, Tacticon. I knew it would come back to me. So Genghis Khan and Tacticon. Those are the two that are really well sponsored by the Rocky Mountain Savages. Although I'm on the other side of the Rocky Mountains, so hey, come on. No, actually, I'm gonna try and set up the Salt City Savages or the Salt Lake Savages, depending on what we're gonna call them. But I do want to just kind of play up the fact that Salt Lake City does show up in all the Deadlands stories as like one of the most technologically advanced places. Actually, you can't see it outside my windows right now, but I'm driving through now the northern points of Silicon Slopes, where there's lots of it's really a cool space. There's a lot of really cool creative stuff going on here, and my shout out to them. But yeah, I really like what Chris Fox has said about bases and things like that, and he's kind of encouraged me to look into doing this video cast and these vlogs, and eventually to doing a podcast, because I think that I could definitely help with game masters becoming game masters. Now, I'm probably going to have to start doing these at a spot where I'm not driving, where I'm just sitting down and not just rambling on the random weird things that I think about as I drive. Because, unfortunately, I don't think I'm giving you, dear viewer, the content that you are actually over here after. I've been trying to keep it on Why Do We Roleplay, and I still think Why Do We Roleplay is a very good question. But part of it is escapism. Part of it is we need to have time for ourselves and make that time for ourselves so that we can give of our remaining time to the people and causes and things that matter most to us. I just got back from a really cool talk. I think it's near Arian, E-R-Y-A-N, I think. Yeah, you can check out his blanket, near, N-I-R, and far.com. And he talked about being indistractable, how that would be his superpower if he could have it. And you can, Product Hive was one of the sponsoring groups of getting him out here from New York City. And he, with this book that he's got, it's a kind of a follow-on to his Hooked book that where he talks about designing things to hook other people into playing them. And that's one of the really good things, is that he has pointed out, that basically, as we start with a stimulus, with a trigger, we move into action, we get the reward, and then we start to enjoy that, and then we come back into the look again. It just kind of keeps going in an infinite loop. And yeah, that's what we do with role-playing games. Let's be honest with ourselves. Part of what we do is we play these games because these games give us a chance, an opportunity to have that momentary thrill of, well, is what I'm going to do going to work? Is it yes? Or is it, oh man, but what happens now that I failed? So that's kind of what Hooked was about. But this book he was talking about is one called Indistractable, and he claims that would be his superpower if he could. And the reason why we want to become indistractable is because we want to master, first of all, those internal triggers. Part of the reason why we play role-playing games is because of internal triggers. We have some sort of pain in our lives. And so, in answer to that, we go out with our friends, and in a very positive coping mechanism, we play role-playing games. We play games where we pretend to be someone we're not. Maybe we pretend to be that great knight in shining armor who can swing a sword and cleave an orc. See John Wick in his book Play Dirty Volume 2. In Play Dirty 2, he actually mentions the fact that sometimes we have our evil races and our good races, that both of those kind of sprang out of older racism, and nobody actually thinks about why would orcs be there, and that's something to consider as a game master. If your team of adventurers are ripping the wall off of a hut in a goblin hive, or in Goblin Warren, the door in a Goblin Warren, you can bet there's going to be goblins behind that door. And how many just depends on how many are there in your mind. There's nothing to do with a balanced encounter. If they want to try and storm into the mess hall of a Goblin Warren and they encounter 30 goblins in there, hey, it's their own fault for going in the mess hall of a Goblin Warren. So, anyway, you could be that knight. We pretend to be that knight. And when we pretend to be that knight, we are pretending that we are used to wearing the armor and swinging the sword and being a great warrior on the battlefield. We might not be. Most of us aren't. Most of us would have a hard time actually trying to kill somebody. A lot of us would be out of breath by carrying that 5-pound sword over half a mile. Some of us would just be tired from trying to wear that armor over that space. There's just plenty of things that physically we couldn't do that night that we are playing can do. There's also plenty of things that we can't do. Like, most of us who play role-playing games really aren't that good at socializing. And role-playing games are some of the best socializing we can do. But when we have our smooth-talking rogue who's supposed to charm his way into the king's court, and the best they can come up with is, I say to the guard, I say, guard, could you let me in, please? That's not very good. So that's why games like Savage Worlds have social mechanics. Just like we have combat mechanics for the knight who swings a sword, the dashing courtier will have a social role that they can make to kill their social enemy. So let's call it what it is. We really aren't that great at some of these things. Maybe some of us can fight. I believe I would be in that category. I take personalized self-defense courses. I'm there every week. As soon as I get solid funding coming back in, I'll be there twice a week again. That was one of my favorite things to do. Every Tuesday and every Saturday, I'd be up at Casey's, and we'd be working out and training in the poison smoke system. I walk my dog every morning, and I do other exercises when I come back, so that I can not end up a large man, because I could. I've actually lost over 50 pounds since I got married, which usually goes the other way around. And losing over 50 pounds like that has actually made me healthier now than I've ever been in my life. I still may look larger, but I can move, and I can trot, I can run. And I could probably run in a full suit of armor. But, incidentally, it wouldn't be this massive chest with this tiny waist. No. It's one of my other favorite channels to watch is Shadiversity. Go over there and have a look, have a watch. He's really great. I highly recommend, especially if you're playing fantasy roleplay, take a look at Shadiversity. He talks about castles. He talks about armor. Talks about the fact that padded armor probably couldn't, or actually would keep you safer than leather armor. Because padded armor can actually take a cut and actually handle a lot of stabs better than hard leather armor. It's just the people who made D&D just decided they needed something to gradiate their armors. But Gamberson as he points out in a really excellent and well done video, that is a really good armor. And as a game master, especially in Savage Worlds, hey, you can actually fix that problem. Instead of looking through the list and saying, oh, armor does this. Here's the nice thing about Savage Worlds. It's not going to be that difficult. That heavy cloth, actually, truth be told, if you want to just really abstract it, heavy cloth and leather, make them equal. So they give you +1 to your toughness. And armor piercing goes through that. Chainmail, +2. But most armor piercing will be designed to go through those links. Maybe your plate mail, your steel plate mail, maybe that's going to be like a +4 or +5 even. And that can actually withstand a musket ball at the time period, especially if it's well-crafted angled armor. But I mean, you are talking economically how that plate armor that's the value essentially of a tank in today's money. And it was worn by one man. At least a tank has a whole crew. And that's really where Shadiversity, it really does educate you well on a lot of these things. So go check him out. But I was talking about the shining armor. So that's kind of why again, going back to knights in shining armor, cowboys and Indians, and cops and robbers, maybe spacemen and aliens. It kind of covers just about every major role-playing game out there. And, I guess you could add in adventurers versus Nazis. That's kind of a popular one. But it's very important, though, that we think about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and even look at why we're doing it. Because, like I said at the start of the video, role-playing games give us the opportunities to be game masters. Role-playing games give us the opportunity to be players. And if you are a game master and you're playing in somebody else's campaign, play it. Try and make your character just as blind to other things that are going on as the other players, as the other player characters. Because part of the fun is discovering that story together. Because sometimes we as game masters, we've already read the adventure, or we've even run it. There's a really interesting, intriguing sounding series called East Texas University, and East Texas has a dedicated plot point campaign. I'll get into those on another video, but the idea is that there is a dedicated plot point campaign that can be run and get characters through this whole thing. But, I want to see how this works, because I personally don't know how I feel about the idea that, your novice ranks are based on your year. Your ranks are based on your year in school. So your freshman year is novice. Your sophomore year is heroic, or is not heroic, is seasoned. Your junior year is heroic or is veteran, and then finally your senior year is heroic. I don't know. I'll have to see how that goes. But I can't buy books until I have money, folks. So there's going to be a lot of books that I can't review until I get them. However, when they're on sale and when I have a little bit of money that I can spare, I will buy them. Like, I just bought and spent $9. So I'll drive an extra lift turn or two. Maybe I think I'm going to drive tonight anyway, because I'm going to it's, Labor Day weekend. So I'm going to actually take people out to go to their parties and clubs and bars and things like that, and just go downtown and drive around a lot. Make it so my car's never empty until about maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. Or no, I think I'll just drive till midnight. So I'll drive from about 6 to midnight, see what kind of work I can get. But anyway, I'm sorry, the camera turned there. I didn't pay attention to that. But paying attention to the road's a little more important anyway. So, with that being said, I kind of hope that my meanderings through why we roleplay have been something that have made you start to think, why do I roleplay? Why do I want to spend an hour or 2, 3 hours a week? Or 4 hours a month? Or 6 hours a month? Why do I want to spend this time with people that usually become your best friends? But why do I want to spend this time with these people when I could be doing something else? So, kind of focusing in on Nier's thing, he talks about time boxing. And time boxing is something that you gotta make sure you have a few other things in control first. But time boxing gives us something. And that's something that time boxing gives us, is it gives us, like he says, schedule your time or someone else will. So, when we schedule our time, we end up making time for the things that matter most to us. And yes, there is prioritization in deciding what is most important at this time. But one of the biggest takeaways I had from this thing was virtues are the attributes of what we aspire to be. And if we don't take time and make time to be working on those virtues, then we really are not becoming that aspiring. We're really not achieving those virtues. So I hope my ramblings were fun today. I hope you guys got something out of it. Please email me, nascent.gm, that's NASCENT, meaning new, GM, at gmail.com, nascent.gm@gmail.com, or you can always leave me a comment here, and I'll try and reply to you on the channel. But other than that, thanks for your time today, and go out and make the world a better place by creating a great story.